What's going on YouTube? It's TH back again with another video, and today we're going over on yet another 2-round NFL mock draft with lots of trades in this video. So excited to bring it your way, and of course let me know down below in the comment section who goes too high, who goes too low, who's your favorite team, and did you like the prospect that I gave your favorite squad? All that fun stuff that we do every week. Love to hear your thoughts down below. And let's go ahead and waste no time. Let's jump right into it. Starting with the Chicago Bears at number 1, and I'm going to do something a little different here. And I'm going to kind of, I guess plant my flag here midway through the college football season. Right now, I think Drake Maye is my quarterback 1. And, nothing against Caleb Williams, which kind of leads us into this next move. I do think these guys will go 1-2 in some order if the draft were today. And again, Caleb Williams had a bump in the road. I think he looked pretty good in the Washington game. Also, quick side note, it's just the extra first. It'd probably be a third first-rounder in there if New England wanted to make this move. Don't yell at me, yell at the trade engine. It's mock draft database, not my fault, basically. But I'm going to have Caleb Williams go here to the New England Patriots. And really, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these guys. And to kind of finish my point, yeah, Williams had the bump in the road for that 3-game stretch, starting with the Notre Dame game, and then I think he got back on track against Washington. And he might have a little bit more like off script, out of the pocket playmaking, upside than a Drake Maye does. I just think Maye's a lot better inside the pocket and able to get the ball out quicker. Like I think within the structure of an offense, I feel more confident with Maye translating the next level versus Williams being able to pick it up and kind of hit the ground running from that standpoint. So it's really nothing negative against Williams. I just think Drake Maye is that good. And I think both these guys are blue chip prospects. Like when I announced who on my big board were the blue chippers, both these quarterbacks are going to be there. And really, I think Drake Maye, there's still things to get cleaned up, ball placement. He still drifts on that back foot more than I would like. But, man, the guy is just special. So would love to see these guys go 1-2. And I think if you're a Chicago Bears fan or a New England fan here, you're fine with either one of them, right? Because they're clear upgrades of what you got. So there's no real wrong answer out of these two. Then we get to the New York Giants here at 3. I'll give Marvin Harrison Jr. I kind of went back and forth between Marvin, Olu Fashanu, idea of kicking Evan Neal inside to play guard. But, look, they need a receiver. They need a number 1 guy. And Marv is awesome at just about everything. And you partner him up with, Jalen Hyatt, and then they have plenty of slot receivers. I feel like that becomes a really nice wide receiver room. They not that they're an alpha away, but I think if you look at that receiver room with an alpha type in it, it doesn't look as bad as it does right now. So I think Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of alleviates all those concerns. I'm going to actually have the Arizona Cardinals trade back once again. I think Monty Ossenforth is definitely going to be one of these guys, like that he's always kind of laying that advantage. And that's also kind of the fun part about, them trading places at 4 with New England. Ossenforth comes from that New England background. But I'm going to have the Green Bay Packers moving up a handful of spots to try to take OT1 in this year's class. Let's just say, okay, they're not going to let me do a future first. So let's just go ahead and workshop this just a little bit. We'll call it a future second. Again, don't yell at me. Yell at the trade engine. It's not my fault. But yeah, the Packers could definitely use someone long-term to be that David Bakhtiari replacement. I'm sure if you're a Packers fan, you've seen this in about 1,000 mocks, but really it does make a lot of sense to me. I'm actually going to have them trade up once again in the second round. It's not going to be too costly, but actually I love the haul I have put together here for the Packers in this mock draft. So stick with me if you're a Green Bay fan. Let me know what you think about Olu, plus the guy we're going to have you taking in the second round. So then we get to Chicago, and it's like, man, I don't really love everything that's here. Would have loved to see Olu Fashanu kind of fall in their lap. One of the receivers is tempting here, Malik Neighbors, but I'm going to go Joe Alt. And as much as I think Olu Fashanu is a blue chipper, I think Joe Alt's right there. And I keep going back and forth. Who's my OT1? Preseason, it was Alt. Right now, maybe it's Olu just because that pass protection is just fantastic. At 20 years old, it's unbelievable. But Alt has been stellar in pass protection in his own right, and he's a way better run blocker right now to me. Just maybe doesn't have high-end athleticism and those traits that Olu does. So they're close, but again, two guys that are probably both in my blue chip, list. I love both these guys a ton. And for Chicago, you draft Alt, whether he's playing, left tackle, sounds like a big-time upgrade over Larry Borum. I still hold out hope for Braxton Jones, but you might be able to move Jones inside as well. I think Jones has been a solid fifth-round player, but he's also missed time this year, so and that's the other thing too, is like, okay, solid for a 5th rounder doesn't make you the best version of your roster. How about we go get like a top 10 pick, that type of talent at that position? That's what we're doing here with Joe Alt. All right, then we get to the Los Angeles Rams. And I'm going to finally do it. I'm going to have Laiatu Latu be the first edge off the board. It's good to see that mock draft database has moved him from off-ball linebacker to edge. Love to see that. But, man, he's just a special player, man, and a really refined prospect from a pass rush move standpoint. He knows how to use his hands. Offensive linemen have a hard time getting their hands on him. And I think he's got not elite athleticism, but above average and more than enough to play at the next level. And I think you partner him up with Byron Young, who's super explosive. You have Aaron Donald there in the middle. Love that front seven. Really love that pass rush there for the Ram that would build. Then pivot back to the Arizona Cardinals. Am going to have them stick and pick here after accumulating a bunch of other assets. Let's go Malik Neighbors. I think he just right now barely edges out Keon Coleman for my wide receiver 2. I am biased towards separators, route running archetypes. And not that Keon Coleman's a bad route runner, but he wins because he's 6'4" and a freak athlete and has hands for days. Neighbors is, he kind of plays bigger than 6 foot. He gives me a lot of Stephon Diggs vibes. He plays bigger than that size. He's aggressive coming back to the football. He is a ideal quarterback friend because he is not going to leave you out to dry there. He's going to go attack the football and a really smooth route runner, like I said. So love Neighbors a ton. And with Arizona moving on from DeAndre Hopkins, this is an opportunity to kind of get that same number 1, can consistently win on the outside type of wide receiver. You get him here in the top 10. All right, let me get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is where I'm going to have Jared Verse come off the board. I still like Verse a ton. He's been more good than great this year, but I still think the upside's there. I actually kind of want to see him slim down and maybe get back to where he was a year ago, like 245, get a little bit more explosiveness in that first step. But man, we're fine from a move set, just like Laiatu Latu, rock solid run defender as well. We've seen him go from Albany to Florida State and handle that transition and think he could do the same thing at the NFL level. And Shaq Barrett just, look, I think we're at the end of the line here. And I think Joe Tryon-Shoyinka can be a good player, but that Bucs pass rush is nowhere near what it was in 2019 when they won a Super Bowl. So trying to get them back to those heights, I think Jared Verse could be a good step in the right direction. Plus, you keep him in state, which is a fun storyline. All right, pick number 9, the Denver Broncos. This one's a little tough because they paid Mike McGlinchey a ton of money, so I don't foresee them moving on from him just yet. So maybe, it's a flip to the left tackle spot for Latham. I think he'd be fine at that. And, I think he's cleaned up the penalties enough this year for me to feel confident with him going in the top half of the first round. Awesome size, speed, athlete. He's just got all these first round, offensive tackle qualities. He's a big body guy, very strong, but also quick out of his stance and very good mirroring skills. So I think he's a guy that easily could go top 10, and maybe he's an upgrade in pass protection over McGlinchey. Maybe he's a Garrett Bowles replacement at left tackle. We'll sort that out. No matter how you spin it, though, there's an upgrade to be had there somewhere on that Broncos offensive line. To the Tennessee Titans, this is where I'm going to have Keon Coleman come off the board. Him and Treylon Burks, assuming Burks can stay healthy, those are 2 huge athletic monsters playing receiver for the Tennessee Titans. So I'd love to see that. And plus DeAndre Hopkins, it was a 2-year contract, but it's kind of structured as a 1-year deal. Wouldn't be shocked if they move on from him this offseason. And we'd be going into, Will Levis' first full season starting. So I'm just trying to put weapons around him. And man, oh man, I love Keon Coleman. He's awesome. Like I said a moment ago, it's really close between him and Neighbors. And if you're not as biased towards the route running archetype and you have Coleman at wide receiver 2, I'm not knocking it whatsoever. Next, the Atlanta Falcons. Man, this one's tough. I'll go with Khalid McKinstry. I definitely think this team could use one more corner there on the outside. And you partner up a guy with great man press ability, uber long arms. We'll see what the 40 ends up being. That could definitely be a concern for Kool-Aid. But you partner him up with A.J. Terrell, and I'm feeling pretty good about that secondary. Already think they've done a lot to clean up that defense. I think they're one corner away from going from a pretty good defense to a really good defense, and I think Kool-Aid could be the missing piece that they're looking for. To the Washington Commanders, I never understood why they signed Andrew Wiley. He's just not a very good football player. The only thing I could think of was, Eric Bieniemy's coming over from Kansas City, so he's bringing Wiley over. But Wiley hasn't been good. As much as Charles Leno wants to be like the punching bag for Commanders fans, Wiley's way worse. Wiley's nowhere near as good as Charles Leno. And they're both tackles that are frustratingly average. They're okay against bad pass rushers, but against anybody who's above average, they lose. So let's go ahead and get an upgrade there in Talise Fuaga. Big-time riser throughout the course the last maybe 6 weeks of the draft cycle. But kind of like Latham, huge guy. And a mauler in the run game, mover of people, but also quick out of his stance and very agile, can get to the second level. The change of direction skills aren't always great, so if he needs to redirect and find a linebacker, or if he moves up to the second level and can't find somebody, that might be kind of a wasted play there. But those are kind of the nitpicks in his game. Really, he is I think, top half of the first round off the tackle. This is a really awesome tackle class. He plays right tackle at Oregon State, and I feel comfortable with him staying there for Washington here. And then, maybe we'll see what we can do with Sam Cosmi. Maybe he could learn how to play left tackle, maybe not, but if not, you keep Cosmi at guard. Fuaga's a big time upgrade there at right tackle, which will go a long way, hopefully, for Sam Howell and his development. All right, pick 13, I'm actually going to have a trade here, and we're going to have the Indianapolis Colts move back down, and it's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers that are coming up the board. I've seen this in a few mocks, and I don't hate it whatsoever. And it's going to be the Brock Bowers being the pick here for the Chargers. Look, he's just one of the best players in the draft. So if he's fallen to 13, it's best player available. So for the price of an extra third-round pick to partner him up with I assume Keenan Allen's not going to be there, but let's just say for lack of a better argument, they've been able to, manipulate the cap enough to keep him around this long. So, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston, hopefully Mike Williams coming back healthy, Brock Bowers to kind of play, inline tight end, maybe a little bit of slot receiver. That's pretty awesome. And honestly, I'd love to have him going higher than this, but, I think the weight ultimately is going to be a little bit of a talking point for him. Can he play true tight end? Is he just a slot receiver? I'm not really concerned about that. And really, I look at Gerald Everett, and I just look at Brock Bowers as a way better version than that, especially at this point in Gerald Everett's career cycle. So Brock Bowers, big time upgrade there, and we're just keeping assets around Justin Herbert so we can maximize the winning window that we have. Obviously, he's going into a second contract. That makes it tough, but I think Bowers is just one more weapon for that guy to try to find the football to. All right, next up at 14, I'm going to give the Las Vegas Raiders Jer'Zhan Newton. Could be another guy that kind of goes top 10, honestly, like 9-10. Don't rule that out. Quick out of his stance. Love the pass rush moves. High-end run defender. He's just complete right now. Like, he's NFL ready right now. May not have the highest ceiling of this IDL class, but he definitely has the highest floor. And I would just love that addition to the Raiders' interior defensive line. They need to get better on the inside, need to get better against the run, need an additional pass rusher that's not named Max Crosby. I think Johnny Newton gives them both of that. And I think he could be a guy that makes an impact right away for whoever the head coach in Vegas is next year. Then on to pick 15, the Arizona Cardinals back on the clock. We already went to the SEC once. Let's go ahead and stay in the Southeastern Conference. Let's give them Dallas Turner. Turner's definitely made some headway. I think right now probably my edge 3 with Verse at 2 and Leatu Latu at 1. But man, I do like Dallas Turner and the strides he's made in his development, especially he's added some more strength. He's a guy that can win with speed. We already knew that, but I want to see him gain those secondary and tertiary moves. How can he win in other ways? And also, I think the other improvement I've seen this year is like if he doesn't win with his first move, last year the play was done for him. Like if he didn't win with that first move or speed, he was done. Now he's continuing to battle throughout play, and it feels like that motor's getting him more and more involved as plays go on and on and on. So it's been good to see him be able to go from one move to the next and then just basically continue that battle. Plus, I think he's gained a little bit of muscle, so he's added a little bit more of that to his profile. I think there's a little bit more room to go there, though. But yeah, he's made some headway. He's made progress in places I want to see him make progress while still being a freaky athlete, and I think he leads college football in pressures this year. So the production's definitely there, too, and you partner him up with, Cam Thomas and maybe Dennis Gardeck, I think it just gives you that much more juice to that edge rush group. Plus BJ Ojulari, second rounder last year from LSU. All right, then we get to the New York Jets, and I got a disclaimer here. I'm not the biggest Patrick Paul guy, and I definitely don't see him as a first rounder. He's just kind of athletically limited, like a guy we'll talk about actually in the second round of this video. I would feel more comfortable with Paul going where I have Javon Foster going. We'll talk about that later on, because they're two guys that just aren't that special athletically. But that being said, Patrick Paul's arm length is unbelievable, and also, like the IQ's there, right? Like, and because of that, he doesn't have the swiftest feet to mirror, but it's like he knows what a pass rusher's trying to go to and where he wants to attack Patrick Paul. So he feels like he's a step ahead of everybody he gets matched up with. Plus ideal size, good strength, definitely more of a blocking, or a gap scheme fit versus a zone blocking scheme fit. So maybe that's not a perfect match here with the New York Jets, but hey, it's November. We still got some time to just kind of talk fits, talk about potential player draft zones, right? Like where could they go, mid-first, late-first, mid-second, things like that. And I've seen Patrick Paul in a lot of first-round mocks from a lot of smart people. So I'm a little bit lower on him. Like him in the second round for sure, but here, middle of first, I'm not crazy about it. But for the New York Jets, they're getting a guy who is a high-end pass protector right now in college and could be a plug-and-play option there, and has had multiple years starting there for the Cougars too. So that could be a big-time plus in the eyes of the New York Jets, who need to improve that offensive line. All right, then we get back to the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to give them Rome Odunze, which to me, like if you trade down, get an extra third-rounder, and still land a receiver like Odunze, that's a huge W. He's just Alec Pierce, but better, man. He's got the same size, and we'll see what the vertical is. I know Pierce, that was a big-time reason why he was a riser after the combine, but I think Odunze is going to be just fine there. He may not be off the charts like Pierce, but he'll run probably close to the same 40, have very similar athletic measurables, maybe even a little bit better in some spots, and he's 6'3", 200 pounds, a route tree that wins at all three levels. I just think he's a more dynamic Alec Pierce. So you partner him up with Michael Pittman and what we've seen out of Josh Downs the last 3-4 games. That's a wide receiver trio to make Anthony Richardson awesome. Like I already like the flashes we saw from AR. We already know what he can do with his legs. Give him that wide receiver trio with Shane Steichen calling plays. That's a scary offense. All right, on to the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to go Cooper DeJean. Look, and it's cool to see that Mock Draft Database has moved him over to corner. I think of him as a slot because I think that's ultimately, I did a video on this, so definitely check it out if you haven't already, but I think slot within the next 5 years is going to become the most important position in a secondary. So I want to see DeJean there because I want him close to the football on every play possible, and he is just an insane athlete. Straight line speed, change of direction, the size, the arm length too. I mean, like, he is a true, like, first round, like, built in a lab cornerback. And man, he's been playing a lot of outside corner this year for Iowa. So, maybe he doesn't play safety, maybe he doesn't play slot, maybe he's just an outside corner with just, twitched up athleticism, and that's truly his home. But I'd like to see him kind of play that slot, strong safety hybrid, keep him close to the ball. Kind of Buffalo here, I'm basically just taking the best player available approach. They could use an outside corner. Teron Johnson's pretty solid in the slot. They could use a safety long term. So I don't know if he's necessarily the perfect fit if we're thinking he's going to be a slot, but he could also be a safety upgrade for them long term. He could be an outside corner to pair with or a potential replacement, because Trey White can't stay healthy. So just kind of went BPA. The Bills generally could use some additional bodies in that secondary, and I think Cooper DeJean is one of the best secondary players in this class. So next is the New Orleans Saints at pick 19. I'm going to go Xavier Legette, and, lazy scouting here, but, I mean, it's shades of Deebo Samuel, man. Like, great contested catch guy, awesome frame, rocked up dude, and awesome after the catch. Like, he's got a lot of the Deebo traits. You're going to hear a whole lot of those comps. It's a slippery slope, comping him to a guy who's one of the most dynamic players in the league. But Legette's got a lot of those same traits, man. And I just think about the Saints losing Michael Thomas, assuming that happens this offseason. He could be that big body, physical possession guy, but also you kind of sprinkle him in and use him as a yards after the catch weapon on top of defenses accounting for Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Just one more element to this offense that, man, it's like you add that receiver, ball carrier, yards after the catch element to the offense. I mean, it's like, geez, how do you match up with that passing attack then in New Orleans? Minnesota Vikings, real quick one here, J.J. McCarthy. I mean, they need a quarterback. I'm not the craziest J.J. McCarthy guy. We'll see, ultimately, with, the Penn State game and when they get to see Ohio State and then the college football playoff, assuming they get there. But, I mean, this is a really good Michigan team, right? Like, and I'm actually recording this during the Michigan Penn State game, so shame on me for not watching it live, but I'll watch it on the rewind. Or on the playback. But nevertheless, I mean, there's special arm talent there, enough mobility, multi-year starter. There's a lot of traits there. And I just think about Kevin O'Connell coming from Los Angeles, and I'm like, J.J. McCarthy could definitely be Kevin O'Connell's Matt Stafford that McVay won a Super Bowl with, right? Like, I could see where he's like, McCarthy's got the traits that Sean won a Super Bowl with out of Matt Stafford. Give me that guy, especially if he falls in their lap here at 20. So it's a great value. May not be the highest guy on McCarthy, but if he falls to your lap at 20 and you're looking for Kirk Cousins replacement, it's a good opportunity there to pull the trigger if you're Minnesota. All right, on to pick number 21, it's the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to give him one of my favorite offensive linemen, and, I keep going back and forth. I like Kingsley Suamataia. I like Talise Fuaga. I like J.C. Latham. I'm having a hard time picking out who's my OT3, right? But, man, I still love Kingsley Suamataia. That pass protection in his game right now at BYU is just awesome, and he is a very special fluid athlete at 6'8". He is awesome to watch. I know it's not the SEC, right? Like, so the level of competition is a little different than a Latham. Totally get that. But nonetheless, I just look at what the Cowboys have done with Tyler Smith, and I'm like, dude, give him another freaky big guy with awesome footwork and good tape to this point at college. But, like, man, the traits that Suamataia has with Dallas after seeing what they did with Tyler Smith, this was too good for me to pass up. Hopefully this is your Tyron Smith replacement long term. You keep Tyler Smith there at left guard where he's playing like one of the best players at that position in the NFL, and that's an awesome offensive line moving forward for Dallas, which has been a strength for decade plus now. So let's keep a strength. Then to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm going to go Kalen King here. I know this year has been tough, and, I've heard a couple people say this, so I don't want to be like too repetitive with what other people have said, but I know the Ohio State game was a disappointment, but I think back to A.J. Terrell getting bodied by Jamar Chase in the national championship game, that LSU 2019 championship year. And it's like, yeah, Jamar Chase is a god, though, especially at the college level. Man, was a freak. And, it doesn't mean A.J. Terrell's bad. It's just he went up against one of the best players in college football. So I kind of approach it the same way. Yeah, it's no shame in losing Marvin Harrison Jr. Kalen King's had a down year all across the board, but that Ohio State game, I feel like it's a little unfair to hold that so heavily against him. You can hold it against him, but not that heavily that I feel like the narrative's been at right now. So I'm really drafting him in mind right now to play slot for Pittsburgh. Again, I think slot's going to be the most important position in the secondary within the next 5 years. So I'd love to see him be that inside guy, take away the short throws, use that change of direction skills. This guy's as shifty as anybody in this class. So start stop ability, the click and close, it's all there for Kalen King. And actually, there's one other guy that had a pick earlier today that was crazy, and he's about as close to Kalen King as I've seen in this class. So we'll talk about him in the second round. But big time fan of Kalen King. Would love to see him be that new slot there in Pittsburgh and really shore up that secondary. All right, on to the Houston Texans. They're here at 23. We have Chop Robinson. He's starting to pick it up over the last few weeks. Man, Chop's starting to look like the Chop from a year ago. And another guy who's 250 pounds but rocked up, solid against the run, twitchy first step. Still learning the moveset, though. So, there's work to be done there from a pass rush side. But at the same time, Will Anderson's playing awesome right now. So I'm just looking for a guy on the other side that keeps defenses honest. With the speed and just freaky athleticism in general that Chop has, defenses are going to have to account for that. Or they're just going to lose one-on-ones because Chop's going to go around the outside shoulder of offensive tackles. And that's a nice 1-2 punch there in Houston. So they could use one more edge, and I think Chop's kind of the perfect complement on the other end of Will Anderson. All right, on to the Cincinnati Bengals at pick 24. Let's go Leonard Taylor here, man. I'm still a big believer in Leonard Taylor. He's winning off of size and gifted athleticism, but not much else. But just like I said with Chop, you can teach a guy moves. You can teach that guy to become a refined pass rusher. The same will need to be done for Leonard Taylor at the next level. But also, DJ Reader has been playing great, but we're getting to the point where it's how much longer is he going to continue to play great? I think that other D-tackle spot could be a spot where Cincy's looking for an upgrade. So in a perfect world here, Taylor doesn't see the field a whole lot his rookie year, kind of that Jalen Carter 450, 500 snaps in a season, complimentary piece to DJ Reader. But those two get to work together, and Reader coaches up Taylor, and then ultimately he's that interior force moving forward for that Bengals defensive line. All right, on to the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to go Troy Fontenot. Pretty big fan of Fontenot. He's an offensive tackle right now at Washington, but he's going to play guard at the next level. He's got all the traits you want as an NFL starter. He just doesn't have arm length to where he can play at the NFL offensive tackle, that is. And, maybe we'll see Peter Skoronski may get some chances to play offensive tackle, kind of dispel that myth. Fontenot may get the same chances, but especially if he's going to Seattle. I feel good about Charles Cross, Abe Lucas long term. They could just use an upgrade at that left guard spot. And I think Fontenot is got the movement skills to fit that zone blocking scheme, be a good run blocker, and he's a way better pass protector than anybody they have on the interior right now. So Fontenot, big time upgrade for that middle of the offensive line in Seattle. And here at 25, I don't hate the value of going IOL in this year's class. All right, next up, the San Francisco 49ers, a pick I've made a billion times, but Amarius Mims is just a perfect spot for him to go. A perfect place for San Francisco to go, I should say. Gifted athlete. I mean, all the stuff we said about Broderick Jones. He's big, he's strong, and he moves really well given how big he is. And he plays right tackle right now for Georgia. So I think they could use an upgrade on the interior offensive line for sure, but I like this class a lot on day 2 for the IOL group. With a couple names I wouldn't hate going in the first round, Barton and Fontenot like we talked about. But that being said, tackle's a more valuable spot, so I'd love to see the 49ers address that spot. Marius Mims, I think, is a plug-and-play guy for them and a perfect fit in that Shanahan offense. And plus, it's a great scheme to where, even if Mims struggles a little bit, it'll hide those weaknesses so he can kind of learn on the fly and actually see the field early on. Then to the Miami Dolphins, I'm actually going to have a trade here, and man, I'm actually really excited to talk about this trade. I think this landing spot for Michael Penix would be awesome. So the Dolphins trade with the Los Angeles Rams. We'll say it takes they're going to say a future second's too rich. Y'all tell me down below. It didn't feel too rich to me. We'll just make it a second, third, and then Miami will send back a sixth. There we go. Whatever. Trade goes through. We're not getting to the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth round anyways, but I'm going to have the Los Angeles Rams draft Michael Penix. Penix is awesome attacking deep down the field. The ball location when he's looking deep is stellar. And I'm just thinking about that Sean McVay offense. He gets guys open consistently, attacking the middle of the field, and pushing the ball deep. Michael Penix could be a perfect fit into that offense moving forward. And look, Matt Stafford's hurt again. This has got to be his last year where he's playing in Los Angeles. I just cannot believe that Stafford's going to throw his body through another year of this. I can't think that he is. I think Stafford's hanging it up at the end of this year, and the Rams in turn are going to be looking for a quarterback of the future. And I think Michael Penix trading back in the first round, you get the fifth-year option. This could be a great spot for him and a great addition for Sean McVay and his offense moving forward. All right, let's get to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 28. I always go edge. I feel like Jags fans are probably hating on these mocks because I'm always going the same position group, but I'm giving you a different name just about every time. Jonah Ellis. Man, this guy is a very special athlete. A little undersized, 6'2", 240, 245 right now, but great spin move. Awesome handwork and a nice swim move to go with it too. The spin move, definitely the winning move. That's his go-to. But he can win in a couple other places too, and in a couple other ways. But yeah, big fan of what we've got to see out of him this year at Utah. He leads the country in sacks. I mean, the guy's unbelievable when it comes to his production. And I think even though he's a little undersized, it can work. And honestly, even if he's just your Arden Key third pass rush replacement, and it's really Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen seeing the early down work, right, when you're thinking maybe they're going to run, that's fine. But then you bring Ellis out in passing situations, him and Josh Allen, that's an awesome duo when you're trying to stop the pass. Then we get to the Detroit Lions. They're on the clock here at 29, and they get an absolute steal when it comes to value here. Nate Wiggins. Honestly, if you're telling me Cooper DeJean's your CB1, I'm fine with it. If you're telling me Nate Wiggins your CB1 like Dane Brugler from The Athletic, I don't hate it. I got Kool-Aid McKinstry still at 1 just because I think that man press ability is sick, and I think that's just like a hard trait to have. And if you can do it, I'm going to covet it. Nate Wiggins can play on, he can play off. He could be a great man, zone, athleticism's there, not only in straight line, but change of direction. He's a very sudden athlete. The arm length, the frame, all of it. It's all there. It's all there. He doesn't get tested a whole lot, but when he does, he's also great at attacking the football in the air, too. So if you have Nate Wiggins at CB1, I don't hate it whatsoever. And he goes to a defense at pick 29. Like, this is a perfect scenario here where the Lions are going to be looking for additional secondary reinforcements. Wiggins falls all the way into the lap, and they've been playing more zone this year, but years prior they've been playing man. Either way you spin it, Wiggins can fit into that. All right, then we get to the Baltimore Ravens here at 30. I'm actually going to stay in the secondary. Give them Denzel Burke. It's been a little bit since I gave the Ravens a cornerback, and they could definitely use one other guy. Rock Ya-Sin's been great this year. Underrated storyline there. But I think part of that is like Jadeveon Clowney's having kind of a career renaissance, sort of. It's not elite, but he's been kind of the Jadeveon Clowney of 4 and 5 years ago. And Odafe Owe has had a breakout season thus far. And they're piecing together other edge rushing opportunities and other pass rush generally, and therefore I think that secondary is playing a little bit, or looks a little bit better than maybe what it actually is on paper. So getting one other guy who's been stellar this season at Ohio State, who also has awesome athletic traits, will be a combine warrior and a great frame and arm length to go with it. He checks all the boxes, especially with the tape we've seen this year at Ohio State. Did miss some time, so that's a little bit of an issue, but I don't think anything that's going to like linger. So Denzel Burke, you've earned the opportunity to be a first-round corner. You've checked all the boxes, and I think you partner him with Marlon Humphrey. Maybe they bring back Rock Ya-Sin. Totally here for that move. They do. That's a really nice trio to go behind that emerging pass rush that the Ravens have been able to piece together. Next up, Kansas City. Let's get another new name here in this first-round mock draft. Ja'Lynn Polk this year has been awesome. And I love all three of these Washington receivers. I had Jalen McMillan in my way too early receiver rankings as an honorable mention. I like McMillan still a ton too. And if he goes on day 2, not mad about that whatsoever. But man, Ja'Lynn Polk, super shifty, love the route running. And at 6'2", 205, he's not little. He is not small whatsoever. So he could be the additional speed the Chiefs are always looking for. A guy who's big enough to kind of be the contested catch, Juju Smith-Schuster, middle of the field weapon to complement Travis Kelce, but again with the speed too, he could be a deep threat too. Like I think this is a guy that maybe they wanted Sky Moore to be. I think Ja'Lynn Polk could be the upgraded version of Sky Moore, a guy who wins at all 3 levels, can be an underneath asset to kind of, when Pat is seeing pressure, get the ball out quick, let him be shifty with the ball in his hands, be a yards after the catch weapon, be a deep threat. I think he could do it all. So sneaking him in here the first round for the first time on the channel, getting him to Kansas City at 31, feels like a perfect addition for Kansas City, the receiver they're looking for, and that's an awesome place for any receiver to go, obviously. Then we get to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to go with Tyler Guyton here, offensive tackle from Oklahoma. Kind of like Talise Fuaga. I mean, just like for a really big guy, he is super quick out of his stance. So you love the movement skills, you love the explosiveness out of that stance, and the ability to get to the second level and inflict damage onto linebackers, safeties, and corners alike. Plenty of play strength, has the anchor, and he's gotten a lot better in pass protection over the course of the last 2 years too. So I'm definitely thinking of him as another first-round potential tackle. Again, I think this is a great tackle class. So for Philadelphia, you draft Tyler Guyton, and he's your Lane Johnson replacement down the line. Whenever that day comes, or if it's just Lane Johnson's your starter, but you know he's going to miss 7 games a year, 6 games a year, Tyler Guyton, I think just plugging him in is worthwhile, the first-round pick as is. It's a great roster there in Philadelphia. I'm just trying to think about what are the things that could prevent you from being great. Offensive line injuries, secondary injuries. So let's go ahead and patch up any potential future offensive line issues with Tyler Guyton here to round out the first round. All right, on to the second round, Arizona Cardinals. Let's give them a corner now. Kamari Lassiter is just playing as good as any corner in college football right now. And just like Denzel Burke, was on my preseason honorable mentions for cornerbacks, and the man has the size, has the speed. Burke, it was like we haven't seen elite play yet. Lassiter, it's like he's been playing on the best defense in college football the last 2 years, and with a front seven that is pretty much all NFL guys. What's he look like this year? And with maybe a little bit of a step down in that front seven talent in Georgia, Lassiter has not looked any different. Maybe he's looked better this season that's going on right now. So Love what I've seen out of Kamari Lassiter. Again, size, frame, arm length, ability to play press, ability to play off. All of it's there. And I think the ball skills are fine too. And the ball tracking, for that matter, is fine. So, yeah, love Amir at the top of the second round. And, now you look at Arizona, we give him a receiver, an edge, and a corner, attacking those key positions of high position value other than, quarterback, which I think at this point just stick out with Kyler Murray. All right, let's get to the Carolina Panthers. Let's go A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell has first-round talent, dude. He's got first-round talent. Maybe not always like first-round production or tape right now, but the dude's got the talent. Because, he's as fast as anybody in this class, just like his teammate Xavier Worthy. Those guys could be, if you say they run the fastest 40 at Indy, I'm not surprised. But also A.D. Mitchell, like 4 to 5 routes a game, he just makes a DB look foolish, and he will snap ankles. Like, it's crazy. Like, the touchdown he had against Houston was unfair. Like, that was illegal in 27 states, I'm convinced. So that at 6'4" is special, and it's rare. So, maybe is it upgrade over DJ Chark, who's on a 1-year deal there in Carolina. And really right now, anybody could be an upgrade other than Adam Thielen right now. But I think that's just, the ball's got to go somewhere. Thielen's just kind of a fantasy hero right now because the ball's got to go somewhere and he's getting all the production. So they're looking for a number 1 wide receiver, and Mitchell definitely has the talent. So take a chance on him here in the second round. And plus, I know they did the same thing kind of with Mingo. Mingo might have actually been the 34th overall pick last year too. I can't remember. But let's say Mingo takes a step forward in year 2, partner up with A.D. Mitchell. Could be a nice, solid wide receiver room moving forward with a couple of second rounders there leading the way. All right, on to New England here at 35. We did not get a receiver in the first round. Instead, we went quarterback, but now we will give him that receiver, Emeka Egbuka. I know he hasn't been as special as people maybe thought. He's preseason my number 2 receiver right behind his teammate Marvin Harrison Jr. And, the production hasn't been awesome. The hands aren't always, fantastic, but I think he's a sharp route runner, and that's really what I'm worried about. It's harder to get open than it is to catch football. We can clean that up. But I also think he comes with a little bit of yards after the catch ability. It is going to be interesting to see what his weight is at the combine and that 40 speed. And depending on what we get there, maybe he's slot only, maybe he can play outside. Right now, I think he can do both. But I could see where, depending on where those check in, and then, of course, the pro day thereafter, I could see where the narrative maybe starts to build where he's slot only. Either way, for New England, they can use an upgrade inside or out. So give them Emeka Egbuka. Let's really upgrade this passing attack. New quarterback, new potential number 1 receiver. Love that if I'm a Patriots fan. Then we get to the Giants at 36, and actually the Giants are not going to make this pick. This is going to be that trade that I mentioned earlier. Giants are moving back. Green Bay's moving up. And this is now back-to-back mocks where I've had Green Bay take this same player. In the mock from a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, it was at the end of the first round. But, dude, Cam Kinchens would just be a perfect addition to that Green Bay secondary. So, fuck it. I'm going to keep making the pick. I love this fit. He's good enough to where he could play slot, he could play strong safety. But here I'm really thinking, especially if they move on from Darnell Savage, this is your free safety of the future, and then you'll find someone else who can be that box guy moving forward. But they also run a lot of cover 4, so he's fine in that split safety type of defense too. So Cam Kinchens is a complete safety, man, and I'm teetering. I keep going back and forth. Is he blue chip? Is he not? I like Cam Kinchens a ton. So even if he's not on my blue chipper list, just know he was like the first name right outside that list, or he's going to be the last name on. So love Kitchens a ton. Love this fit here in Green Bay. They need another secondary, and or another safety, excuse me. And I think Cam Kinchens is the exact guy, and he can do everything. So you name it, he can step up and do whatever Joe Barry, the defensive coordinator for the Packers, needs him to do. All right, then to the Washington Commanders. Obviously, they trade both their edge rushers at the deadline, so I'm going to give him JT Tuamelo, a guy who really turned it on in that fourth quarter against Penn State, which he likes to do. But, former 5-star recruit. Don't think he's like the most fierce of pass rusher, but there are times where the power's there. He's got enough speed off the line of scrimmage. He almost feels like a little bit of an upgraded Braylon Trice to me when he's at his best. There's also plenty of games where Tuamelo is like super quiet. So I don't know. The consistency still needs to be a little bit better, but he's more athletic than Zach Harrison, who was a third rounder from Ohio State last year, with about the same amount of power in my eyes. And he's also a solid run defender too. So like JT Tuamelo, like him more as a second rounder than a first rounder, but I know he has his fans, and he is a former 5-star recruit, like one of the highest graded recruits coming out of high school by 247. So that will matter, and I know that will carry some weight once we get to further and further into the draft cycle. But for right now, I'm kind of liking the idea of him being a second rounder, and for Washington, opportunity to kind of replenish that edge group after trading Young and Sweat at the deadline. All right, then to Miami. Look, if Ja'Tavion Sanders keeps falling, I'm going to keep making this pick. I know Sanders hasn't been super special, but also Texas has been playing without, Quinn Ewers the last 2 weeks. I'm recording this on Saturday when he's coming back, but the last 2 Saturdays he hasn't been there, so that definitely plays a factor. But also, A.D. Mitchell's awesome, Xavier Worthy's awesome. So, there's only a certain amount of touches to go around. Also, Jonathan Brooks, who's going to be here in the second round of this mock for the first time we're talking about him. He's awesome. So, there's so many good players that it's hard to feed everyone. Ja'Tavion Sanders, really good athlete, plus blocker, and he's awesome with the ball in his hands. And he's a good enough route runner to create separation, has the frame, has the strength. If not for Brock Bowers, he's an easy tight end one for me this year. So love Ja'Tavion Sanders, and with the athleticism and blocking ability, this is Mike McDaniel's chance to draft somebody as close to George Kittle as you're going to get, especially when it comes at pick 38. All right, on to Tampa Bay at 39. Let's go Xavier Worthy here. I imagine Mike Evans is not a Buccaneer for much longer, so they're going to need that, deep threat to complement Chris Godwin, who does a lot of the underneath and dirty work, intermediate stuff, yards after the catch work. That's all Godwin. They need someone else to be that over-the-top threat that keeps defenses honest. And if Mike Evans isn't doing it, okay, let's draft a replacement. It's Xavier Worthy. Evans has still been good this year, so I don't want to rush his departure from Tampa, but I just imagine over 30, the contract. I assume he's going to be on his way out sooner rather than later. And Evans and Worthy both do it in very different ways. One guy is 6'5" and awesome in the air and a really good contested catch guy. And the other is an absolute burner, and that's Xavier Worthy. So would love to see him be that other outside receiver, opening up that space underneath for Chris Godwin. So love that fit there in Tampa Bay. Then we get to the New Orleans Saints, and I'm going to go interior offensive line here. I'm going to go Graham Barton. They haven't listed a tackle, but I think he's going to be a guard. Same thing we talked about with Fontenot earlier. He's got everything you want to be an NFL starter at the next level, except for arm length. He just doesn't have the arm length to be a true NFL tackle. So I think the same thing is going to happen to Barton that we talked about with Fontenot. He'll kick inside, play guard. Maybe those two, plus Peter Skoronski with a chance to play tackle, and they'll prove that, hey, arm length is not that big of a deal. For right now, that's the one measurement I do take into account. So for the Saints, this is your left guard of the future. You can play him at right guard. I know Mel Kiper Jr.'s got him ranked as a center, so true offensive line flexibility here with Graham Barton, so I don't hate it either way you spin it. But I think the Saints' interior offensive line, that's an overrated group. And I think maybe this year people are starting to catch up on that, but there's a lot of money going to Andrus Peat and, a lot of hype for a former first rounder and Cesar Ruiz, but those guys just aren't that good. Graham Barton would be a big upgrade over at least one of those guys. All right, next the Tennessee Titans. This is what I was talking about earlier. A guy almost as twitchy and as good in that click and close skill set as Kalen King. It's Terrion Arnold, man. And ultimately, I think Arnold might be slot guy at the next level. I love the idea of that because I just love, I think, again, best players in the league in the next 5 years can be playing slot, at least in the DB's world. But, man, the pick he had today for Alabama against Kentucky was crazy. And again, it's just that ability to close on the football, man. He's got crazy change of direction skills. Also good straight line speed. He's very aggressive, very competitive, willing tackler too. So again, I think the argument for him playing slots there for that reason too. But with ideal size, great recruiting background too, so he checks a lot of boxes. And Tennessee could use one more guy there in that secondary. The only question mark is are they comfortable with drafting a slot when they have Elijah Molden and they have some other guys who could maybe fill that same role? But I want to talk about Terrion Arnold, and dude, after that pick he had against Kentucky today, I had to get him up here. So then we get to the New York Giants, and let's make it happen. We're going to go ahead and give him a quarterback here. Quinn Ewers off the board. He's going to the New York Giants, and Ewers, like I said, coming back from injury, so I get to see him play today, actually, which I'm excited about. Missed the last 2 weeks, but, we've seen him step up and play some great football in the biggest games of his collegiate career, the 2 Alabama games, really. Everywhere else, it's been inconsistent to, not very good. It's kind of range between those two. But, man, with a strong finish this year, he could really solidify himself as a top 50 pick at the quarterback spot, maybe get back in that first-round contention. Plus, you get the news about, juniors being able to go to some of these bowl games. Wouldn't be surprised if Quinn Ewers works himself in that mix. I do believe he might be a redshirt sophomore. I had to double check on that. But, man, I like the upside that Ewers brings, and especially you put him in a Brian Daboll offense. We saw what Daboll did with Allen, and Daniel Jones looked bad this year. The Giants look bad this year, but Daniel Jones a year ago had the best year of his career. And I think a lot of that credit has to go to Brian Daboll. So give him Quinn Ewers. I think he'll be able to get the best out of Ewers. Then we get to Washington here at 43. And look, they've been looking for an upgraded linebacker for a while. Jamin Davis has had some flash plays, but ultimately he hasn't been great, especially with no Cole Holcomb there. They need a green dot there in the middle. And then Jeremiah Trotter Jr., take it from a Notre Dame fan. This guy can play. He destroyed. He ruined all things Notre Dame was trying to do in that Clemson Fighting Irish game. And he was just all over the field. And he's such a great tackler. He's a great communicator. He is a true green dot, middle of the field, Mike linebacker. And the anticipatory skills are just off the charts. Plus the tackling, all of it's there. Maybe not to be the most gifted athlete, but he's not far off. And honestly, we kind of the same rhetoric about Jack Campbell, and then he actually had pretty good combine. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jeremiah Trotter Jr. posts some numbers that most people are like, oh, He's not a bad athlete. Okay, off-ball linebacker 1. And it's just that simple. Like, I think he'll overperform based off people's expectations. So for him to go to Washington, that'd be a huge upgrade for the middle of that defense. Then we get to Indianapolis. And actually, we're going to go ahead and have a trade here with the Colts and the Atlanta Falcons. So Indianapolis is moving back 2 places. The Atlanta Falcons are moving up 2 spots. And I really thought about making this pick Jayden Daniels. So if you're a big Jayden Daniels believer, if you're a Falcons fan, let me know what you think about that. Would you be excited about Jayden Daniels? But ultimately, I think Bo Nix is a better prospect. As much as I don't love Bo Nix, I do think Bo Nix is a little bit better. And, we've just seen so much growth out of him moving from Auburn to Oregon, being able to fit within an offense. Yes, I think Oregon's offense inflates him a little bit. He has a lot of easy, reads, right? He just throws a lot of screens, too. But there's also plenty of plays where he's attacking deep down the field, and he has enough arm strength to get it there. Ball placement generally is pretty good attacking the middle of the field. Plus what he can do as a rusher, too. Like, I think he kind of fits with what Arthur Smith's looking for in this dual-threat quarterback. He had it with Mariota. He's got it now with Ridder. I think Bo Nix could just be basically an upgraded version of Ridder. And especially with what you see out of Nix just running that Oregon offense. I think he gets a lot of credit for kind of being the star of that offense, but really, it's the scheme and it's the system, and he orchestrates it really, really well. So I could look at Arthur Smith, and I could see him saying, that guy just runs that offense to perfection. Get him in the building. He will run my offense just the way I want him to. And, I don't know. Like, Arthur Smith's kind of an interesting guy in and of itself, but I can see him kind of coveting a guy who's not trying to do too much, not trying to be the hero, just wants to run the offense. I think that's Bo Nix. Then we get to the Las Vegas Raiders here at 45. They desperately need some, secondary reinforcements. Quinyon Mitchell's a fun one here. Really strong, yoked up corner, but I'm going to go TJ Tampa if I could actually, click on the button to draft him. Solid size, solid athleticism. Maybe nothing that's like wow-inducing, but man, the film this year has just been really, really solid at Iowa State. I think he can play both man and zone, on and off coverage. So kind of an underrated, under the radar, just really well-balanced cornerback here, but the Raiders could use any and all help they can get there in that secondary. So then we get back to the Indianapolis Colts, and I'm going to have them draft Josh Newton. A lot of the same stuff I said about TJ Tampa there. I don't think Josh Newton's going to wow anybody with his combine numbers, but he was the best corner on that TCU defense last year, and he's still the best corner on that TCU defense. So a little overlooked, I felt like, a year ago. Hope he gets his, his opportunity in the sun this draft cycle because he deserves it. And, I'm looking at Indianapolis. I think Juju Brents has played okay at times, pretty good at times, but he's also missed time. Like, he's been off the field, he's been injured. And then you have Jalen Jones, 7th rounder, getting time, former undrafted player in Flowers, seeing the field a lot. Even if Juju Brents hits, they could use one other guy. And I think Josh Newton at least gives you one extra body. Throw a dart at the board, see if it works, and then potentially maybe it's Brent and Newton long term as that corner tandem in Indianapolis. All right, at pick 47, I'm going to give the Green Bay Packers Mason Smith. I think they could use one more guy there on that inside to partner up with Kenny Clark and Devontae Wyatt. And Mason Smith might be able to play nose tackle for this defense. That might be a little bit of a stretch. Might need to bulk up if he's going to do that. But edge turned interior defensive lineman at LSU, and freaky athlete, 5-star recruit coming out of high school. A lot of those things that catches a lot of people's attention right away. And given what we've seen Green Bay do with Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, and a lot of these other raw prospects, Quay Walker coming out of college, really raw, and we've seen them develop all of them. All of them have become pretty good players and pretty good players pretty early on in their career. So I would just love to see them take this freaky athlete, very multiple ball of Clay and Mason Smith, and see if they can work their magic with him. Partner him up with Devontae Wyatt and Kenny Clark. That's an awesome trio there in the middle of that defensive line. Then we get to the Chargers here at 48. I'm going to go Chris Jenkins. I mean, how many years now do we have to talk about the Chargers and how they cannot stop the run? So why don't we give them the best run-stopping 3-tech in this year's draft? As simple as that. Jenkins' dad was awesome, especially as a run defender, and Jenkins has all those traits. A little bit undersized, but he doesn't play like it whatsoever. Work in progress as a pass rusher. But honestly, if Bosa is going to keep playing the way he has over the last 2 weeks, and if Khalil Mack can maybe give you another year or two at his IN level, plus Tuli Tuipulotu, I think they have enough pass rush to where if Jenkins is just okay there, you're fine. You really want to make this pick because of the run-stopping reinforcements that this defense has long needed. I think Jenkins can provide it. Then we get to Houston at 49. I'm actually going to stay at the interior defensive line group. I think one more pass rusher for this defense could go a long way. I'm going to go with Howard Cross. He's been one of the most productive pass rushers from the inside in college football this year. And kind of like this year's Kalijah Cansey, maybe not as twitched up. And that's why I see him more as a second rounder guy versus like Kancey. I was like, he's going first round somewhere. So here, just an opportunity to add one more pass rusher. We add an edge rusher, and now we get the additional reinforcements on the inside with Howard Cross. All of a sudden, that front four is starting to look a whole lot like what DeMeco Ryans had in San Francisco, right? So I just want to add more and more pass rushers there to that front four, so that way they can rush 4, drop 7 in coverage, and let's literally turn this defense into what DeMeco Ryans had in San Francisco. That would be ideal. I also did think about T'Vondre Sweat. He will go in the second round of this mock draft, but if you think T'Vondre Sweat, get that 2-gapping nose tackle is a better fit, I don't hate that line of thinking whatsoever. I was really close to making that the pick, but decided to go with the extra pass rush juice and make the selection Howard Cross III. Then it's the Buffalo Bills, and I'm going to give them Brian Thomas Jr., a guy that we have not talked about in any of these videos. And I can't believe I'm having, there he is. And look, Malik Nabers is awesome. But Brian Thomas is like 6'3", 205 pounds, and he's been as productive as a receiver as anybody in the country. Very good route runner, can win deep down the field, enough yards after the catch ability to be a guy who wins and contributes at all 3 levels. Like, I really like Brian Thomas Jr. This is a good receiver class. And this is really where the kind of the problem rises. I could draft Malik Nabers at 7 overall, or I could wait and maybe he'll fall into my lap at 57 or something like that. So I don't know when the Cardinals are picking the rest of the second round. I'm just throwing arbitrary numbers out there, but it's a deep receiver group. So you're going to hear that conversation a lot as we get closer and closer to late April, where it's like you could draft one of these top end guys and you wouldn't be upset with an elite receiver potentially in a Keon Coleman, a Malik Nabers, and Marvin Harrison Jr. You'd also get some really good players in the second and third round. So what's the opportunity cost? If you go receiver late, you may be able to draft an Olu Fashanu at the top of the draft. But maybe if you go receiver there, then you're kind of slim pickings for other position groups later on down the draft. Just going to be an interesting conversation to be had. Just kind of wanted to talk about it here. Let me know what you think down below. But like Brian Thomas Jr. a ton, and Gabe Davis contract year, he's going to be a free agent next season. I think Brian Thomas Jr. can just win in more areas of the field than Gabe Davis can. So let's diversify the portfolio of that Bills offense. Let's add another guy who can win at multiple levels like a Stephon Diggs. And let's really open up this passing attack in Buffalo. Then we get back to Minnesota at 51. Another guy we have not had in any of these videos yet is Chris Braswell. I was just wanting to see as much about him as I could before I put him in one of these second round mocks. He looked good pretty much from week 1 on. I was like, okay, Chris Braswell, that's a name to know. This guy could definitely bust onto the scene. High end athleticism, enough height and weight there to play all 3 downs at the next level. Okay, there might be something here. And, it definitely helps having Dallas Turner on the other side. Dallas Turner gets the lion's share of the attention from that edge group. So a lot of one-on-ones for Braswell. But, he's winning them. He's winning them, right? So that's got to count for something. And, I look at this Minnesota defense and, Danielle Hunter didn't get traded at the deadline. But, it's a continuous song and dance. Will they, won't they, keep him around? And then even besides that, Marcus Davenport 1-year deal. And then who else? This is an edge group that needs long-term answers. Chris Braswell in the second round, the athletic traits there, he could be the guy moving forward for the Vikings. And then we're actually going to stay in the edge group here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Braylon Trice, real easy one for me here. Brandon Graham can't play forever, and he's a speed-to-power edge rusher on a limited snap share just because of his age. Braylon Trice can do that exact same thing. This is literally drafting a Brandon Graham replacement. I've done it in prior mocks. I've had Eagles fans comment about this, and I totally agree with them. This is a perfect continuation of Brandon Graham with the Eagles. It just comes in the body of Braylon Trice. So love the speed to power. He's a perfect complement, perfect Brandon Graham replacement, and I love the value here. I'm not a huge Braylon Trice guy, but at 52 for the Eagles, I'm all on board. Let me get back to the Pittsburgh Steelers here at 53. I'm going to go Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle from Arizona. Really light on his feet, really smooth mover, great mirroring ability. Love him as a pass protector. And he's done a great job bouncing back from the ACL injury that ended the 2022-23 season early for him. The only downside of this pick for Pittsburgh is him or Broderick Jones going to move her to right tackle. But either way you spin it, I'm fine with that. And we're getting 2 uber athletic, really good on the move offensive linemen for that zone blocking scheme. But also Morgan is just such a polished pass protector. So that's where I'm almost let's move Broderick Jones to right tackle, and he'll be our mauler, and we'll run off the right side, and we'll have Jordan Morgan be that blindside protector for Kenny Pickett. So if I could pick, that would be the way I'd play it out, but I'm not upset with it either way that you spin it there for Pittsburgh. They just got to find an upgrade over Chukwuma Okorafor and Dan Moore Jr. Those two just aren't cutting it. Then we get to the Cleveland Browns at 54. This is actually going to stay in the offensive line group. Javon Foster, noted that we were going to talk about him earlier on, and just like Patrick Paul, don't think he's super gifted athletically. I don't think that's what makes him special. But Foster this year is one of the highest graded offensive linemen using PFF's overall grade, pass protection, and run blocking. He's pseudo triple crown run here for Javon Foster and doing it in the SEC. So I think this is a guy who's just played enough football. He's been on my kind of draft radar for 3 years in a row now, where he's just seen the field a ton and a ton and a ton. And now the grades have just continuously gone up and up and up and up. I think the technique's been there, the hand fighting, the strength is all there. He's just not like a top-end athlete. And that's why I said Patrick Paul, Javon Foster. I don't love them as first-rounders just because they don't have the elite athleticism I want to have in a first-round selection. But he's got everything else. So in the second round, sure, sign me up for that. And for the Cleveland Browns, like Jedrick Wills just got hurt. He ultimately has not been a great first-round selection. You might be trying to find a replacement there. I think DeJuan Jones can be that right tackle of the future. So I think that position's fine. Really, this is like a Jedrick Wills long-term replacement here in Javon Foster. Or maybe just another swing tackle just to keep a strength of strength there in Cleveland. Next, the Cincinnati Bengals. And as we stay in the AFC North, we will stay in the tackle group. But Cooper Beebe, is he's an interior offensive lineman for me. And the weak link of that Bengals offensive line right now is left guard. Cooper Beebe, plug-and-play option there at left guard. It's as simple as that. He has been awesome in pass protection, light on his feet enough to where he'll fit that blocking scheme too. I just think he's ready to go. And he's just like Fontenot, he's just like Barton, where it's like, give him longer arms. Maybe we could talk about him playing tackle. I also think Beebe's feet speed or foot speed's a little bit slower than those other two guys, so maybe that also moves him inside. But really, if you give those guys longer arms, I could totally see an argument for them playing tackle at the NFL level. But we're here for the Bengals. It's like, dude, draft Cooper Beebe, plug and play, multi-year starter there at K-State, and just have him be your upgrade over Cordell Volson. Simple as that. And let's finish this offensive line retool that's been going on the last 3 years. I think Beebe's that last missing piece. Then the Dallas Cowboys at pick 56. This is where we're going to have Jonathan Brooks come off the board. And, man, I'm starting to see some boards, some position rankings where Brooks is RB1 for people. And I don't hate it. I don't hate it whatsoever. The vision, the contact balance, the play strength. Plus, he's an awesome receiver out of the backfield. And that's where it's like, yeah, I can't fault Jadavion Sanders for not having a bigger year. He's got two great receivers and an awesome pass-catching running back in that backfield. There's only so many touches to go around, especially over the last 2 weeks with no Quinn Ewers. So, yeah, man, Jonathan Brooks with his pass-catching ability, I don't mind seeing backfield sets with him and Pollard on the field. I want linebackers to be shaking in their boots when those guys are both on the field. Or it's like, hey, Pollard's on the tag. We need a long-term running back of the future. So either way you spin it, whether it's a running mate with Pollard or the replacement to Pollard, I love adding Jonathan Brooks into that backfield. And here at 56, don't hate the value whatsoever. Next, 57, let's give the San Francisco 49ers Max Melton. He's been good this year, nothing great, but he's been solid. And he plays on a defense that has an awesome pass rush in front of him there at Rutgers. So I kind of think he's getting the perfect situation here in San Francisco. They could use one more guy to play on the outside. He'll have a great front seven and a great pass rush in front of him. This is especially assuming they sign Chase Young long term. So I think he'll be good. And I think he just kind of having that similar background and strength to a defense in college and translating to the NFL level, he knows what to do. He knows what to expect. And he knows how long, you need to stick on a receiver. I mean, ideally the whole play, but you know what I'm saying? He knows the pass rush is going to get home within 3 seconds. So that's the focus. And I think he's also a really good press option too. So him plus Charvarius Ward just getting receivers to the line of scrimmage, having them half a second late, getting off the line of scrimmage when you have that pass rush is super, super valuable. So I like that fit a lot in San Francisco. Then we're on to pick 58 with the New York Giants. And I'd love to go tackle here if I could, just so that way we can move Evan Neal back inside. But ultimately, I'm going to go Zach Zinter. I think he's a guard at the next level, and he plays guard right now for Michigan, so I don't know why they're projecting him to play tackle. But I think basically this is your upgrade at left guard they've been looking for. And any resource you can put in that offensive line right now, they need it. It's the worst offensive line of football with no Andrew Thomas out there. So, yeah, they need some major upgrades. Again, would love to get a tackle and move Evan Neal inside to play guard, where I think he'd be awesome. But with where the board's at right now, don't love the tackle value, so let's just go ahead and draft an interior offensive lineman and hope that Evan Neal takes a step forward. Back to the Miami Dolphins at pick 59. Another good spot to go interior offensive line. I'll go with, I'm stuck between Cedric Van Pran or Christian Mahogany. I think Van Pran's a better player, so let's go with that. Let's just go best player out of the two. But Mahogany comes with more position flexibility. And if you draft Van Pran, who's only played center at Georgia, that's where he's going to play. He's going to play center. And then I guess you're moving Connor Williams to one of the guard spots. Either way you spin it, that's where maybe, Mahogany is definitely the way to go. They just need better guard options, right? Liam Eichenberg isn't cutting it. Lester Cotton's not great. Now, I know they have Robert Hunt there, but Hunt's hurt right now. And even if that means Eichenberg's the other starter, you can get an upgrade there. So let's just go ahead and draft one. Van Pran, move Williams over. I'm feeling a little bit better about that interior offensive line group there in Miami. Pick 60, I'm going to give the Jacksonville Jaguars Tyler Nubin. I don't know if Nubin and Andrew Cisco can both coexist in that defense, but I'd be interested to see what it would look like. I think Cisco's been a better run defender and a better tackler at the NFL level than I ever imagined after he came out of Syracuse. So let's say that maybe he could be more that downhill box safety type with some playmaking ability, and then Tyler Nubin just plays over the top. Nubin's also a really good tackler too, but I want Tyler Nubin playing center field if I'm drafting him. So you move Cisco into the box, Nubin plays center field, upgrade over Rashawn Jenkins through and through. And I think Nubin's been a really, really solid player. It's hard to find a spot for safety sometimes. But, man, I would love to see Nubin go somewhere here in the top 60. And I think the Jags, just inside that mark, so I could sneak him in. But also, I'd be really interested to see what him and Cisco could do in that secondary. Next, the Detroit Lions. I think they could use one more edge. Now, I know you got the Aquara brothers there. I hear it. And James Houston, he's taking a little bit of a step back this season, though. And honestly, I like Houston the best as a DPR. He's just not, I don't think he has the size and the strength to play every down and be someone you want playing against the run. So let's make Houston a DPR, and let's draft Gabriel Murphy. 3 consecutive years of elite pass rush grades from PFF, plus the production to go with it. You partner him up with Aiden Hutchinson. Okay, now we're talking. If that could be the edge tandem of the future, long term, the starters, and then you sprinkle in some James Houston on top of that, that's an awesome pass rush. Plus, you had Nate Wiggins fall in your lap at 29. I'm feeling great about this 2-year overhaul that the Lions have gone on the defensive side. So would love the value here if Murphy could fall into their lap. 3 picks to go. Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to give him Brandon Dorless. Dorless, former interior defensive lineman that now plays edge at Oregon. Ultimately, I think 3-4 D end is the perfect spot for him, playing that 3-tech spot. And the Ravens need an upgrade there. They just don't have anybody who's very good. Justin Madubuike is just not it. So they need an upgrade there, and I think Dorless with his run-stopping ability, instant, you can start him right away and feel comfortable with him playing 3 downs, but he's also been a pretty solid pass rusher there at Oregon. Doesn't win with speed, which if he's playing 3-4 DN, I wouldn't expect him to, but it's the hand fighting, and it's really more quickness out of his stance than it is true speed, but I also think he's just a refined pass rusher when it comes to a move set and using his hands. So we'll love to see him in the middle of that defensive line, and maybe they're bringing back Clowney. Adafe always had a breakout year. If he's in the middle with those guys on the edge, with how they played this year, feeling really good about that pass rush in Baltimore. Next up, Kansas City. This is where I'm going to have Devondre Sweat come off the board. I just think, man, Chris Jones is awesome, but if we can get an upgrade over Derek Nottie, specifically as a run defender, and just let Sweat be a 2-gapping nose tackle, keep Chris Jones clean against the run, how much better could he be as a pass rusher? If his mind is solely focused on pass rush, oh my God, he's already maybe the best interior defensive lineman in football, him and Aaron Donald right there. Could he get better? Could Chris Jones get better because of this selection? Also, Derek Nottie, you could just do better there. So Devondre Sweat could be just a natural upgrade at that position. And back to Chris Jones, I almost think about Kenny Clark in Green Bay. He used to play nose, and then they moved him to 3-4 DN so he could focus on being a high-end pass rusher. And he's kind of extended his career by a couple of years. So even if Jones doesn't get better per se in Kansas City, maybe you get an extra 2 to 3 years out of him, which would be super, super valuable as they're trying to maximize this winning window with a Kelsey, with a Mahomes, and with the Chris Jones as their 3 best players. Last pick, Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to go Donovan Jackson. High-end athlete, 5-star recruit, and a great run blocker. So getting Tyler Guyton as that long-term answer for whatever happens with Lane Johnson and his career. Partner that up with Donovan Jackson as some additional interior offensive line depth, high-end run blocker with great athletic traits. Feels like a really solid way for Philadelphia to keep a strength of strength. And we're going on close to almost 15 years now where we're talking about Philadelphia as one of maybe the best offensive line in football. And it's because of investments like a Guyton in the first round, a Donovan Jackson in the second round, that Howie Roseman's been able to do something just like that. But guys, here's another look at both rounds from this mock draft. Let me know what you think down below. Who went too high? Who went too low? And who's your favorite team, of course? And did you like the picks I gave your squad? Plus, let me know what you think about the trades. I know the value is not super spot on. I'll worry about it being to a T accurate when it comes to the trade chart once we get close to the deadline. Let's get into 2024 before I start sweating about how many points each side's giving up here. Let's just have some fun. Let's make it work in the trade engine. But again, let me hear your thoughts down below in the comments section about the trades, players, landing spots, draft ranges, all that stuff. Anything you have to say, I want to hear you say it down below in the comments section. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hit that like button if you did. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We're growing to really close to 3,000 subs. I'd love to see this video be the one that gets us over the top. And if it does, thank you all so much in advance. But that's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name's Teej, and I'm signing off.